Hey everyone, my name is Poisonblade and I hope all of you are having a good day. So for today's video, I'm going to be building a brewery for my favorite alcoholic dwarf. Yes, I'm building a brewery for BeyondDrew, and yes, I made it way too big, so this is going to be a two-parter, much to the annoyance of someone else. But anyway, with that being said, let's get straight into today's video. So yes, as I said, this is going to be a two-parter because I thought, well, here's the thing. We're building basically for a dwarf. So I first thought like, oh, it's going to be a little bit smaller. But then I also thought like, oh, this is like the head office, like the main building. I don't really think that the brewery is like in any place other than this one. But you usually have that like the head office or the main building. Usually is kind of like a show-off building because you want to show off like how good your business is going. And also, Drew is probably not the only one working here. I just really thought like, oh, there's probably like a centaur working here, or in most cases, probably there's also humans. There's not only dwarfs working here, so couple that with like the image of like, oh, this is how good the brewery is going. I kind of made the building bigger, and yes, that is a little bit of like a, oh, I made it too huge. Let's try and make a backstory for why it's huge. So, yeah, it was fun to build this. I did have a slight mental breakdown when the roof didn't really connect with the wall or didn't align or center with the wall. And so, all of this was built on stream. So I had a very public, almost meltdown. Yeah, I really want things to align. I have gotten better at it, definitely, because I don't make everything symmetrical anymore. I actually like now having like, oh, there's a random thing over here and a random thing over there, and it doesn't completely align anymore. Yeah, when it comes to the roof, I want to align that, and so didn't want to align, or I just continuously made mistakes actually. Yeah, then it was just like, no, align, god damn it. But anyway, yeah, public meltdown aside, I really like this building. I mean, I wouldn't show it to you guys if I didn't like it. Luckily, I didn't really have to do too much to the backside because it's also built into the side of a cliff. But that just gave me more of an excuse to really go all out on the front. It's in a way a shame that it's like not have, the brewery doesn't have really like a plaza or like a big street in front of it. The tower that I will eventually build does connect to like a small square, but I just thought like, oh, maybe, well, this brewery of course didn't start out as huge as this, so maybe they, well, I don't think Drew bought the place. I think like it's like a family owned brewery, so Drew inherited it from his father, who inherited it from his father, and somewhere up the line, I just like to think that somebody won the brewery in a game of cards. Kind of seems like the thing that would happen in, well, Valhalla. But yeah, so building a thing for a dwarf was fun and a little bit, because I didn't know how to really make this work and how to give like the references of like, oh, this is owned by a dwarf, or at least dwarves work here, and also centaurs and satyrs. So the only reference I could really put in for that was there are 3 door handles. A dwarf height one, human height, and centaur height. Because, I mean, unless a centaur or a dwarf have like Slenderman arms, they are not going to reach the upper ones or the lower ones. They might be able to reach the human height ones, and yes, I did actually use the archer for that one. That is like the most bit of realism I'm going to give Drew's brewery. So yeah, deal with it, mate. You're not going to get a realistic building out of me. And actually, this building is I think the most fantasy so far. It gives me really like elvish vibes. Elvish. Now I just think of Elvis Presley. I mean, it's a brewery, it's for an alcoholic dwarf. If I'm off my rocket, this is the video to do it. And before anyone asks, no, I'm not high or drunk. I'm I'm just always like this. But anyway, as I said, it was a little bit difficult to make this like, oh, this is for a dwarf, but then also, of course, like there's other people working here, there's other races working here, and so far all of the races that I sort of made canon for this fantasy world of mine are, of course, the standard humans, centaurs, satyrs, and now dwarves. I've said this before in a video. Centaurs are a little bit difficult to work in because it's like they're usually taller, but they also have like the ass end of a horse, so it's like, how are you going to make that work? But then I realized, yeah, if you make stairs correctly, you probably can easily use stairs that are usable by centaurs and humans and dwarves. You just have to think about it a little bit. So basically, I have to make sure that all of the stairs that I'm building are also usable by zebras, because that's, well, I think okapis are the largest like horse-like animals that we have in-game. Yeah, this is literally just things that you won't really notice, but I notice, and that's why I will put them in. So yeah, it's also just a, like, again, I don't really plan too much on like doing anything with all of this like world building. I just like world building for the sake of world building. Yeah, our favorite plague nation now has an entire history and an entire culture and economic background and such. Yeah, there's that. Also, I just went all in with the world building. Here's the thing that's difficult, especially when you add new races, is like what's like the cultural identity of the races. Like biology is very, well, at least in my opinion, is easier compared to like cultural things, because how is a dwarf from, let's say, Valhalla going to differ from a dwarf in Can al-Bashar? Is there like some broad specs of culture that are the same across the board, or is like a dwarf from Can al-Bashar completely different than a dwarf from Valhalla? Or is there, as I said, some things that are the same? Also, I right now start building the centerpiece, which is the tower, which took the longest amount of time. It really feels like I breezed through like the factory hall, and yes, the open windows do mean that I'm going to build an interior. So that's going to be fun for the next video, because I didn't want to make a 30-minute video because I wouldn't watch it, so I'm not going to force you guys to watch a 30-minute video, so I'm trying to keep everything under or around 20. But yeah, there's going to be an interior, and there's going to be a crazy tower, because why not? I also, when it came to dwarves, like, this is really just a dwarf video. Like, yes, I will mention Drew, but then it's just like, Drew is an alcoholic dwarf, so I'm going to use that as a segue to just talk about dwarves. I don't want the standard Tolkien dwarves. I don't want to associate my dwarves with mountains. Like, this might just be my personal opinion, just going completely through everything, but then it's my fantasy world, so most of it is like built around like my ideas on things. But yeah, I just think like, oh, dwarves, like mountains, they're usually cold, damp, and just dark. Yeah, I don't want my dwarves to be in the mountains. And I actually thought of like, oh, it might be fun to, instead of placing dwarves like with their, because you need a home country or homeland, because most, well, in real life as well, humans came from like one place, I think in like Eastern Africa, and then we migrated across the globe. So where did the dwarves come from? And then I just wanted to put them in the desert, like the complete opposite. Or maybe the forest, because biology wise, like dwarves usually are shorter, maybe a little bit like stockier or broader, so that they have like somewhat equal strength to a human. Although I don't think they're stronger than a centaur. Probably just as strong as a satyr, because a satyr, I'm probably not grammar. I'm probably not pronouncing satyr right, but then whenever I ever pronounce something right, dwarves shorter, maybe as strong, but you know, they have shorter legs, so maybe they're not like the best like runners, or at least not long-term runners, maybe like sprinters. So how well would they do with hunting? Like, how good are their eyes? Like, what are like the evolution based basically, because if you have like natural skills, that's usually the way that your race evolves slowly. I don't know if I'm making any sense here. I mean, granted, this past 2 weeks now, I have had some medical issues, so I'm a little bit more off my rocket, and also the schedule for the channel is a little bit off the. Well, does this channel actually have a schedule? Like, I always want to like have something going on like Wednesday and Sunday, but then I also sometimes randomly throw in Friday on there as well. But yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, the past week, and then it's going to continue into this week and probably next week as well, but the channel is going to be a little bit, well, randomy when it comes to schedule, because I have some medical issues that I need to take care of, and that, you know, your own health always takes precedence over anything else. Well, most things, but anyway, yeah, and that's the explanation for why the channel's a little bit wonky right now. But when it comes to dwarves and their homeland and, you know, evolution-wise, I just don't know why I wanted to put dwarves in the desert, actually. First I thought like, oh, maybe because they're smaller, they would work well in the desert. I don't know why I thought that, but I do want to put them in a place that's not a mountain, at least, or not like a cold region. So I always kind of think like, well, not Noskoros or Valhalla. I don't want to place dwarves as like, oh, they're native to this place. I really just like to think of like, oh, maybe centaurs are native to this place, or like satyrs, but that the dwarves come from farther south. Maybe not the desert region, but just in like a temperate climate, maybe slightly Mediterranean climate, so maybe they are from, I don't know, somewhere in the western lands. Yes, those lands don't have a name, so I'm just calling them western lands because they're west of Canopshire, west of Byzantium, so that's why they are there. Even though Noskodos is in a way further west than them, but basically dwarves are somewhere in the south. Centaurs are somewhere north-ish. Satyrs are just random. I have no idea. Maybe satyrs should be in the desert. And then I also think like, going into the centaur talk a little bit, I do think that like centaurs from, let's say, Byzantium, or to make it more easy for you guys, Kayan would probably look very much different than a centaur from Valhalla. Like, I always like to think like, oh, a centaur from Kayan is going to look a little bit more like zebra-like, or maybe not antelope, gazelle-like, and then a centaur from Noskoros or Valhalla is probably going to look a little bit more stockier, a little bit more like hairy. Also, yes, now that I'm on the topic of hairy, I do envision Drew with like a magnificent beard, like a huge beard with like all kinds of things in it, like some golden, I don't know, accessories in his beard. So, Drew, if you're watching this, better lay down that razor, because if you don't have a magnificent beard by the end of this year, I will burn your brewery. I already did it with Esten's farm. I'm not afraid to burn people's buildings. And yes, that actually happened. Esten's llama farm is now a ruin. But that's what happens when you complain that somebody else's build is larger than yours, or at least am a little bit jealous of that, even though I'm building something in Suyana that is going to overshadow this brewery by a huge amount. I am going for that audible jaw drop and for that apology. Because if you piss me off, I will burn your building. Also, in Canopshire, I don't know if it's canonically or just for funsies, but either Esten is dead, as in murdered, or he is in hiding. Although I do well, I have plans for another build to kind of put Aztec in his place even more. I really sound like the playground bully, don't I? But that's also kind of what I've become in Aztec's and Drew's streams. I'm just bullying them. It's all in good fun though. At least I hope they see it that way. I'm never being serious with the murder stuff. Well, unless it's early in the morning. I'm not allowed to go near a person with scissors. He asked for it. Didn't know that his eye would be that easy to impale. I'm half joking. I probably shouldn't say this with like the friendly FBI guy watching, but yeah. I did make the motion to stab someone with scissors. I didn't go through with it because I thought like, is this asshole Ward going to jail over? Probably not. I had some anger issues in the past, I think. Or I'm just really not a morning person, but then shouldn't be an excuse for almost stabbing someone with scissors. But then, yeah. The guy was a little bit of an asshole. Still didn't deserve to be stabbed, though. Again, didn't really stab him. I just made the motion and he backed away. And I stopped halfway through the motion. I didn't like the scissor didn't touch him. I was just like, go away. Yeah, I should really not have said that. Now that there's probably like some policeman or like someone from the police or the FBI just like watching and just like, noted. Don't get near him when he has scissors in his hands. But anyway, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. It is going to be a two-parter because it's huge. Especially when it's a building for a dwarf. But anyway, again, hope you enjoyed it. The second part of this video will hopefully be out on Friday. So again, schedule's all over the place for this channel. But this is the third time I say it, but it's basically just how my outro goes by now. But hope you enjoyed it, and if you enjoyed it, there's of course the like and subscribe button if you want to see more. And there's a notification button, which doesn't work. Yeah, I usually have something to say about it. But anyway, hope you all have an amazing day. Bye bye!